The Deer Hunters Act 3, Life and Death, is a powerful album, the next chapter in the tragic story of Hunter. In this album, we tackle themes of pain, dread, suffering, regrets, and mistakes, all of this framed through the hellish experience of war. I won't bother to recap the entire story thus far. I have 2 videos that fully cover the stories of Acts 1 and 2, but I will give a little recap of the most recent events. Hunter, having felt ashamed and embarrassed at the conclusion to his and Miss Leading's relationship, chooses to flee the city and boards a boat. We don't know exactly where he's going, and neither does he, but he decides to leave the only place he has ever known. Act 3 begins soon after Act 2, with another song sung by the Oracles, the mysterious spirits that follow Hunter around and offer him advice. Like with my previous 2 videos, I highly recommend that you listen to Act 3 before watching this breakdown. This album in particular has a lot of story that is shown through music rather than lyrics, and I will try my best to cover that, but I can only do so much in this format. Please subscribe to the channel as well, it means a lot to me. The support on the previous videos has been really awesome. The Deer Hunter community always blows me away with how supportive it is. These videos take a lot of effort to make, as you can see by my sub count. I don't really make any money from them, so subscribing does really mean a lot. Without further ado, let's get into the story of Act 3, Life and Death. Track 1, Writing on a Wall. Our introduction to Act 3 is the best introduction so far. It is a haunting track that perfectly sets up the tone for the rest of the album. This song is sung by the Oracles, the mysterious spirits who guide Hunter through his life. Hunter has fled the city and is now searching for greater meaning in life. He was told in the previous act that if he fled the city, he could not be saved. The Oracles provide a caveat to this prophecy, however. Come away, young man, where the ground is red and you need a mask to breathe. Hunter is offered the chance to enlist in the military. The timing of the story tells us that he is fighting in World War I, then called the Great War because World War II hadn't happened yet. The red ground is a battlefield splattered and soaked with blood. The mask is referring to the chemical warfare that was present during this time in the particular war, so like a gas mask. If there's one particular theme that runs through the album, it is this: war is hell. Hunter will soon discover that for himself. Oh, it's been so hard, but your luck could change if you just roll up your sleeves. The Oracles tell Hunter that although his life has been hard, he could change his doomed fate by rolling up his sleeves and facing the conflict head on. All of these lines and sayings by the Oracles could also be interpreted as something a military recruiter would say to someone else as well, selling an idealized version of what is essentially voluntarily putting yourself through hell. We had tried our best to warn before, but it didn't get you far. Like stated earlier, the Oracles attempted to give Hunter advice on the last album, but he ended up going against their wishes, and all of that led him to this point now. Now we're here again with a wish to mend your agonizing scar. Hunter wants to heal the painful scar left by Miss Leading. He felt betrayed by her, feeling that she never really cared about him while he was in love with her. We know that she did have feelings for him, but was unwilling to be honest with him. The Oracles claim they can mend this scar by his enlisting in the army. They also seem to be invested in helping him out. They seem to take pity on him and genuinely want him to follow their advice. Open eyes, young man, vigilante hands, and a heart prepared for pain. The Oracles are warning Hunter to keep his eyes open and alert in the war. They also say that his pain with Miss Leading has prepared him for the suffering he will experience in this war. The term vigilante hands is one that will come up at the end of the album, hinting to the fact that Hunter may be interested in enacting his own justice rather than strictly following the orders handed down to him. You will lose much more in this vicious war. Past and present stay the same. Hunter is told straight up that this war will take far more from him than he would have ever lost if he had stayed in the city. While the Oracles want to help him, they seem eager to reinforce the idea that failing to follow their advice has brought him suffering. They also state that nothing they do can erase his troubled past. Those things will stay the same. They seem to encourage him to embrace the past rather than trying to hide from it. This will also be important later. But the time to come can be altered some if you listen to our song. The Oracles tell him again that he can avoid his death if he listens to their advice, hinting that he may survive the war if he is able to keep his eyes open and stay alert. But we sing in vain, and the fact remains, there is nothing can be done. Despite the Oracle's presumed omniscience, they can't truly affect the outcome of Hunter's life. While he may be able to avoid the death and destruction of war, his misery may be doomed to follow him around until the day he dies. This song ends with an instrumental section featuring a marching beat on a snare drum. It really sounds like Hunter is marching off to war with the rest of his squad. I love this song. I think it might be the best opening song of the acts, although Act 5 may have it just barely beat in my eyes. I think it is a wonderful way to set off the tone of the album, and it really drives home the hopeless, desperate scenario that Hunter has put himself in. The story of the acts is one of tragedy. Hunter has just stepped center stage into the biggest tragedy of all. Track 2, In Cauda Venenum. The name of this track is Latin for In the Tail Hides the Poison. This is a reference to something that will happen at the end of the album, but for now, we'll just look at the lyrics to this song in particular. This song is all about the horrors of war and is meant to invoke the feeling of being on the battlefield. The music is chaotic and bombastic and fills you with a sense of dread and hopelessness. Something that Act 3 does, perhaps better than any of the other albums, is painting the picture of the story through the music alone rather than conveying it through lyrics. This is mostly awesome, although the back half of the album does have some story beats that are near impossible to catch only by listening to the album. But let's get into it. We're biding our tongues, biding our time. Hunter and the other soldiers are biding time before they see the first combat of the war. I imagine them to be in some sort of transport vehicle waiting to be set out onto the battlefield. An apparition awoken with an urge to own and occupy. This apparition can refer to the spirit of war itself, or perhaps what Hunter sees as a latent force inside every man, that has a compulsion to take from others and add to their own pile. War is typically fought for political reasons and often involves invading other countries to take their resources or annex their land. That urge to own and occupy is what drives military conflict and is something that men cannot escape from. Whoever said this was easy? I imagine this line to be in reference to military recruitment. Perhaps the soldiers were led to believe that war was not as bad as they had heard, that it is really just a simple task that lets you return home as a hero. Met with the horrors of what war actually is like, the soldiers cry out that things are much worse than they were led to believe. A Majesty's massacre floods the fields of red. Each faction in war is controlled by politicians or royalty. This line gives us the image of the soldiers flooding out onto a blood-stained field as they start attacking each other. Blood to your body naturally rushes the blood to your head, to your head. I see this line as the soldiers seeing the blood spray from their fellow soldiers and almost painting their own bodies. When this happens, the soldiers realize the situation they are in and go into a sort of bloodlust. They are turned into killing machines. The scream on the second "to your head" is a nice touch that adds to the chaos of this track. It really puts you in the headspace of the scared and adrenaline-filled soldiers. And now, with our hands in line, these arms move tonight. Hunter and his squad are finally on the battlefield and are getting their first taste of the hell of war. Their hands being in line is to show unity and conformity. We will see more examples of the soldiers being reduced to objects when it comes to war. In that, I kind of find an interesting parallel between Hunter's experience in war and the sex workers of the dime back in the city. Hunter was so disgusted with misleading when he discovered what she did for work, but now he is too essentially reverted to selling his body out in the case that he is a soldier fighting a war. But I also want to make it clear that I'm not saying that military service is someone selling themselves out or that it is related to sex work in any way, just that Hunter is probably feeling these things. And we cry, we cannot allow this is terrible. Hunter and the other soldiers cry out that they cannot allow the other soldiers to slaughter their own without retribution and start to fight them off. This line could also be a more philosophical one where the soldiers are questioning why humanity or God would ever allow war to happen in the first place. They can't imagine a world that would allow for such destruction. With ideals, we're idle as they lust for more if we settle the score. Hunter and his side see themselves as holding their own ideals. They see themselves as heroes that push back against the oppressors who lust for more bloodshed. The irony is that the other side is probably thinking the same exact thing. Wars are fought to settle the score between two sides. These lines allude to the fact that even if Hunter's army were to get even, the higher-ups would still want more. In reality, the war isn't about settling the score, it's about crushing the opposition. We've never been so excited to see you before. Easily my favorite line in the song. I see it as the government or military expressing their sinister zeal for Hunter to join them. The elites never once cared for the soldiers up until they decided to let themselves be slaughtered for them. They were of no use until they were used as pawns. In the cradle we are helpless, but on our feet we are fatal. These lines paint a picture of a world that trains men to be killers as soon as they are out of the cradle, again reinforcing the idea that the government only cares for its men if they are acting as killing machines in service of that government. How we evolve and grow into twisted beasts with a desire for disorder. Hunter is now questioning how men can be shaped into these twisted beasts that seek to hurt one another. He has always carried with him a rather bleak view of the world, and now that worldview is being validated right in front of his eyes. Oh, what a terrible, terrible game we play, replacing a pawn for a body, and the players, politicians, who say what they need to say. War can be seen as a game to those who give the orders, when it is hell for those who execute those orders. Soldiers are used as pawns to settle conflicts that they have no part in, and the politicians are free to barter and abuse lives to serve their own ends. Now, with hands aligned, arms moved tonight, here with abrasive eyes, pain in plain sight. Hunter and the army cannot take their eyes away from the destruction around them. They see the pain inflicted by both them and on them, and they continue on, killing every enemy in their way. When we settle the score. This line is slightly different from the last time it was sung. Now it is confirmed that even if Hunter is able to settle the score, they will still lust for more. The violence will never stop. This line is also some foreshadowing to some events that will happen in a later album. Hunter will adopt the inability to let things be after he has settled the score. He will become that which he despises. Oh, when I think about your eyes. Oh, when I think about your smile. Oh, when I think about your lies. Traveled all this way just to find love. Here the song takes a complete tonal shift from where it was. We get Hunter thinking about someone. That person is misleading. He is reflecting on her looks, her personality, and her deceit, and comes to the conclusion that he is really in love with her. He chose to flee the city to escape her, only to find that he is still in love with her, but now he's powerless to do anything about it since he is now caught up in the war. The irony is that he realizes this so soon, and that is just another example of Hunter not being the smartest guy out there. Overall, I really love this song. It sets the stage so well for the album, and definitely hits very hard since it's a dramatic shift from what we heard on Acts 1 and 2. Track 3, What It Means to Be Alone. Our next song is one of my favorites on the album. It is all about Hunter experiencing the horrors of war firsthand. Now that he has fled the city and made it to the battlefield, he can truly know the meaning of loneliness. Oh, you were born with the sun, and oh, you will die with the moon. These lyrics have always intrigued me. They can be interpreted as Hunter being born with a relatively good outlook on life, living in an idealized home with his mother, now realizing that he will die in darkness. It could also be a reference to Hunter feeling that every day he dies over and over again. The pain of war has caused him to feel that every night is another night that he could die. And everything you thought you had, you lost. But now, you'd never lose what you don't have. Like we discussed in the previous song, Hunter is realizing that maybe life in the city wasn't so bad. Maybe his relationship with Misleading could have worked out if he had only been more understanding and less insecure. He has truly reached a point where he has nothing to lose. In that way, he is the perfect soldier because he only fights to survive, and the world won't miss him when he's gone. Prayers from above, never answered quite enough. This song often deals with themes of religion. Hunter feels that any prayer that he has said was never answered in the way that he wanted. He is someone who, ever since leaving his home, has sought answers. This introduces some irony as the answers that Hunter finds are typically the ones that end up hurting him. He found out that Misleading was a sex worker, and it caused him to lose his mind. There is another truth that he will discover in this album that will cause him great pain. I'm also now realizing, this is after I've made the script, that it says prayers from above and not prayers to above. So that's kind of interesting as well. So maybe the prayers from above are like people assuming that God has called them to fight in this war when it's probably not the case. So that's just an interesting tidbit that I did not realize when I was making the script. So a little bit of a ad-lib insert here. Now the only one you have is you with this cruel, bitter heart. Hunter is left alone with a bitter and cynical view of the world. His heart has become bitter and lonely from all the abandonment and betrayal that he has felt. You were cold and in love, left here naked in the sun, run, scared, from this cruel and bitter world. This has only begun as the bombs are bursting on. We see Hunter reflecting on his position in the world. He is cold, scared, dreaming of the love that he had for misleading, and coming to the realization that all of this is just the beginning. The war has just barely started and he is already in complete emotional agony. These lines also give us an insight as to how Hunter's mind works in opposition to the will of the oracles. They have told him to face his problems head on, but Hunter's first instinct is always to run away and assume the worst. Smoke arose on azimuth glares, bodies brewed in frigid winter air, where families' sons are robbed beneath their feet. So the term azimuth glares is one that is a little confusing. The azimuth is a word used in astronomy to describe the horizontal direction of a star or another celestial body. So you can imagine that each star has both a vertical direction or an altitude, as well as a horizontal degree measurement that you would see on a compass. In that way, smoke on an azimuth glare could mean that Hunter's view of reality, or the true direction of his celestial guidance, potentially the oracles, has been obscured. Any guidance that Hunter has received is now foggy and unclear. We're also given the image of bodies freezing in the cold of winter. It must be extraordinarily cold where Hunter is at, and the soldiers are giving no meaningful shelter on the battlefield. We get another reference to the hell of war. We get the image of men being drafted into a war that they wanted no place in, being robbed from their families right in front of their very eyes. And hearts concede, ab ovo, the angel sings, ad astra, our eyes to the sea. Some insanely cryptic stuff going on here that I will do my best to analyze. Ab ovo is the Latin phrase that can be meant as from the beginning, although it literally means from the egg, which is like a chicken hatching from an egg or a human being initially fertilized in an egg, like an embryo. Ad astra is another phrase that means to the stars. I think these lines are meant to further illustrate the idea that life is somewhat pointless. We are brought to the earth only to be sent back to where the stars are when we die. Also, I want to say when I'm saying life is pointless, I'm saying like that's from Hunter's perspective. I don't think that. I'm not a nihilistic person. I just want to make that clear that a lot of this analysis is kind of from the Hunter perspective and not from my personal eyes. Our eyes to the sea is trickier for me to wrap my head around. It paints the image of the soldiers looking out at the sea, but I can only speculate as to what reason they're doing that. Maybe they're considering throwing themselves into the ocean to get things over with. It could possibly be the soldiers looking out in desperation at the waters in hope that reinforcements will arrive and help them on the battlefield. Or maybe it is just some beautiful, meaningless poetry. We thought we had a cause for suffering and reason enough to die alone. Again, Hunter's coming to terms with the fact that his life before the war really wasn't so bad. He thought things were terrible for him and that by leaving the city, things could only get better. Unfortunately for him, things only ever got worse. This has only begun as the bombs are bursting off. In the second chorus, we get a slight variation on the wording used to describe these bombs. This is an intentional reference to the oracles on the Delphi Express, where the lyrics read, "When the bombs go off, you'll know right where you are." Hunter now knows exactly where he is and what it means to be alone. With our feet beneath us and our hands to the sky, we extend our limbs begging why, oh why, don't turn away. This is another example of the soldiers wondering and begging God, asking why he would allow such horrors to go unchecked. They beg for an answer but are only met with the call, don't turn away, being told to continue and fight. We also get one of my favorite musical moments where a string orchestra comes in near the end of the interlude before the final section of the song. We get some triplet string runs that are really just awesome and super cool. This entire song is really wonderful and I'm incredibly excited to see it live. It captures the despair of Hunter and all the other soldiers incredibly well and has always been one of my favorite songs in the album. A little underrated if I do say so myself. Prayers from above never answered quite enough. Looking up never offered you too much. Now the only one you have is... Hunter looking to God never gave him any answers or solace. Now he is truly alone and reflects that the only person he has is someone. His thoughts are cut off as he hears the mechanical sounds of something large approaching in the distance. Track 4, The Tank. I know it's becoming a little bit of a meme at this point, but this song is actually insane. If you were to imagine writing a song about a tank, I want you to think about what sounds you would use. I write music all the time and just thinking about it is kind of a hard task. The Deer Hunter captured the image of the tank so perfectly in this song, and it blows my mind. Rather than creating a song that lives purely in chaos like they did with the second track on the album, they created a song that is hauntingly beautiful at times and imposing at others, almost like you can't help but be in awe of seeing this hulking machine coming towards you, but your instincts are telling you to run away before you are killed by it. Tanks first saw mainstream use in war during World War I. That war in particular was mostly fought in trenches. Soldiers would hole up in the trenches they had dug and essentially wait out the other side as disease and gangrene would end up killing most people. Trying to make a run for it outside of the trench was essentially suicide, as you would be gunned down almost immediately. This made the invention of the tank so valuable. It allowed soldiers to advance in an armored vehicle and mow down everything in front of them. While you're listening to this song and my analysis, put yourself in Hunter's position, scared, alone, and now face to face with a mechanical beast dead set on killing you. 8 wheels lusting for the lives of infantry, his bearings shift, his turrets turning from accountability, he takes his aim. Here we see the tank being personified as a living creature. We are told that the tank lusts for the lives of infantry, that it is dead set on killing as many people as possible. His turrets turning from accountability is to illustrate that the tank doesn't bother to look at the death and destruction that it has caused. It just continues on killing and destroying. We sing our final song, and soon this verse is over. The soldiers of the path of the tank say their last words and accept their own deaths at the hand of the tank. It is a little bit of a fourth wall break as well, because that portion of the verse ends right there as well. He makes advances till his wheels cease to roll. His God is smiling. His God is smiling on his cold mechanic's soul. Again, we get the image of the tank continuing to advance on the battlefield and destroy everything in its path. Its creator, or God, can look upon their work with satisfaction given its incredible ability to kill. The only meaningful measure of success when it comes to weapons of war is how efficiently they can kill someone. It is a grim thought that such efficiency is rewarded and celebrated across the world. His plot is perfect if it sees no contradiction. Disagree. An interesting couple of lines here. At first, we have the assertion that a machine so perfect at killing must be in and of itself perfect. If the plan can't be contradicted, then it must be sound. But then we have a robotic voice coming in to say, disagree. I believe that this is the moral side of the argument, pointing out that the killing power of the tank should not be applauded, but rather condemned. The disagree could also be a cry from the tank itself. Maybe the machine's soul is not really interested in killing and isn't as cold a mechanic as we were led to believe. The word disagree is also really hard to hear in this song. I could always tell that something was being said, but I never picked it up completely. I asked on the subreddit, and Casey himself answered that the word is disagree, so that's pretty cool. You've stained your skin, and I won't stick around, long enough to count the hearts that hit the ground. So long ago, was I one of them? These lines call back to the idea that the tank continues to move on, not even counting the bodies that it's leaving in its wake. However, there is also another meaning to these lyrics. Here we also have Hunter deciding to flee the battlefield instead of waiting around to be killed by the tank. For a brief moment, he considers whether he also died on the battlefield and is currently in hell, as he can see no difference between hell and war. Your urgency hastened by his ingenuity. It's just a matter of moments, till your body is debris, so say your prayers. Hunter's flight from the battlefield is quickened by the pace of the tank coming to kill him. If he does not escape, then his body will be nothing more than wreckage on the battlefield to be cleaned up at a later date. And still, he moves on. Arm and iron conquer heart and soul. The machine is conquering the hearts and souls of those it kills. A mere human being is nothing when compared to the tank. And what of those in silent disconnect? Sundry souls akin in consequence. As Hunter runs away, he wonders about his fellow soldiers that are now stuck on the battlefield. One can imagine that most of the soldiers who are still able to fight have made a run for it, while the ones who are left behind are injured, facing the consequences of war. Begging for bliss beyond the pain, relief is just a turret's turn away. The soldiers left on the battlefield know that their time is up, and they sit there hoping that something better awaits them after death. The only relief from their torment that they can imagine is the hope that the tank will turn its sights on them and finish the job. Again, a magnificent song that captures the futility of fighting against something that you know you cannot stop. By the end of the song, we know that Hunter has escaped the battlefield and has made his way into the nearby woods. Track 5, The Poison Woman. Our next song is a definite change of pace for the album. After several heavy songs focusing on the initial battle that Hunter finds himself in, now we see a smaller moment. Hunter has run into the woods and comes upon a shack where he meets a woman who lives there, offering drinks to any soldier who comes across her path. The seed of the apothecary, an heir to aided ends. The woman is the daughter of a doctor. The main difference between her and her mother or father is that the woman takes delight in poisoning those who come across her instead of offering any aid. She loves the sound they make as they expel a breath, the soul from the chest. She laughs a little, but never makes a sound. Here we see some of the reason that the woman kills the soldiers that she finds. She just enjoys seeing them die. There is no rhyme or reason. She doesn't even take sides. When the men die, she laughs under her breath, but not too loud as to draw suspicion. She swears she's offering you something savory, what lies she tells. So take a drink, her product's number one, right down the hatch. The woman fools the men into drinking the poison. They are probably just relieved to find somewhere to rest after being on the battlefield and don't question the generosity of the stranger. They drink her poison without question. And now, it seems, a smooth intoxication, well, just one drop is more than enough. The drink seems to get the soldiers drunk or high or in some other altered state of consciousness. They don't feel themselves dying right away and instead assume they're merely under the influence. A single drop is enough to kill them though, and they pass away soon after. She never dwells on penitence, advancing in a haze. The woman doesn't seem to be bothered by her actions. It's almost as if she's just doing it out of routine. This portrays her as somewhat of a force of nature rather than a malicious entity. She's merely playing what she sees as her role in this world and in this war. I'm also now thinking that maybe the word penitence could be penitence, as in like multiple penitent people. And her never dwelling on a penitent person is like if she sees somebody who seems like they might be either like grateful or religious or just a good person, she doesn't dwell on it, she just kills them anyway. But I don't know, I just take the lyrics off of the Lyrics Genius website and I don't have like the vinyl right now to look at and like cross-reference those lyrics, so let me know what you guys think. A million men have reached an end, a side effect of incompetence. She laughs a little, but never smiles. She sees the death of the men as simply a lack of competence on their part. They don't do their due diligence and accept the drink without thought. We also get a hint that maybe she doesn't enjoy this as much as we were led to believe. She never smiles. She has her superstitions. They've got their rationale on call. They never saw it coming. They never stood a chance. Here we get a small look at what the poison woman may be thinking. We are told that she has her superstitions. Maybe she believes that killing these men will bring her good luck? The men having their rationale could mean that they convince themselves that taking a suspicious drink from a stranger is okay because she looks so unassuming. Either way, they didn't see the poison coming and died regardless. She has a new tradition involving ethylene glycol. Ethylene glycol is a liquid that is moderately toxic. Probably not able to kill someone instantly, so maybe this chemical is only part of the mixture and we aren't privy to the rest of it. Interestingly enough, a similar chemical, diethylene glycol, is an ingredient found in antifreeze and was used in the late 20th century by Austrian winemakers to sweeten their wines. It was an enormous scandal when it was revealed and poisoned a lot of people who did not know what they were drinking. She has no apprehension, habit sustains her wickedness. Again, she's been doing this for so long that it is a habit to her. She no longer sees what is wrong with her actions and is unable to stop herself from poisoning the men who come across her shack. With the weight of the world on her shoulders, she don't want none of the sins, as they unfurl in her palms, This is an interesting moment in the song because it seems that the woman is now coming to terms with her evil deeds. She has met Hunter by this point and something about him has made her regret her actions and want to leave them behind. Maybe it's just that Hunter is so pitiable and downtrodden that she cannot bring herself to poison him. For whatever reason, she decides to spare him and even leaves him with a gift. Take this bottle, take this bottle. The woman gives Hunter the bottle of poison. Hunter accepts the bottle and keeps it with him. And that is it for The Poison Woman, an interesting song that is strangely upbeat compared to the songs at the start of the album. We now move on to the next scene in this war. Track 6, The Thief. In this song, Hunter comes across a thief who is looting the corpses of the men who have died on the battlefield. This song is relatively light on lyrics, so the analysis will be a little shorter. In that way, it kind of reminds me of 1878 off of Act 1. Shrouded criminal, an innovative mind, we watch spirits move. The thief disguises himself and starts looting the bodies. He sees himself as an innovative mind, that stealing from the dead isn't something that is avoided for any moral reason, but rather that no one has thought to do it yet. This is obviously untrue. As the thief loots the bodies and Hunter observes, he swears he can see the spirits of the dead drifting away to the afterlife. Shadowed, they're oblivious, with plans awry. The dead are oblivious to themselves being looted. The thief uses this as an excuse for his actions. The soldiers obviously had plans to continue their lives after the war, but those plans have gone awry with their deaths. Who can save us now? Obviously, the dead soldiers are beyond saving, but this question could also be a broader one. With the world being such a terrible, greedy, and opportunistic place, could anyone truly save it? Love seems barren when cash is king. Wealth here for the bleeding, what good will bring? The thief tells Hunter that love is meaningless in a world that is run by money. Since the dead have no need for their possessions, the thief decides that robbing them isn't that big of a deal. My wife and I actually recently visited a museum in Astoria, Oregon that showed the trophies of war taken from Japanese soldiers by the Americans during World War II. Many of the items taken by the Americans were eventually returned decades later to the families of the men who had died, so the American men gave back the Japanese possession to their families. It was an interesting look at how two sides trying to fight each other can forget the human side of a war. Many of the soldiers who took the personal belongings of the Japanese ended up feeling bad they did and returned them to their families to give them closure. It's just a thought that I had that was interesting, kind of an interesting look at war and to see kind of what the thief is doing here and how bad it really is. More than I could ask from those who sleep, a crooked mind, an honest heart, ancillary, they collide. So actually, I'm putting in another ad-lib segment because I didn't catch that first line when I first did my analysis. So, more than I can ask from those who sleep. This is the thief essentially saying that it's a lot better to rob the dead because the people that sleep, you can't ask for that from them because they'd probably wake up and attack him. And then when the crooked mind of the thief meets the honest heart of the boy must decide whether he agrees with the thief or not. The thief insists that an honest heart is ancillary or not crucial to oneself. Hunter seems to disagree with him, though. Cheating innocence, I've got the time tonight. The thief will go out and rob the bodies again tonight. He decides that he has the time to loot this crop of soldiers before the next group eventually takes their place. Those are all the lyrics for this song, but I would suggest that you go give it another listen. It's a super cool song that does a lot to create the mood with the music itself. The meter of the song is uneven and gives you the image of the thief stumbling through the corpses of the fallen soldiers as he's looting them. Track 7, Mustard Gas. We got a nice little 2-song break where the songs weren't explicitly about the horrors of the battlefield, but that is over now. Hunter has found his way into another battle. His time hiding out in the woods is over and he is now met with the titular mustard gas. Mustard gas is a toxic chemical that was used back in World War I. I believe it has been since outlawed by the Chemical Weapons Convention of 1993, as it was seen as too cruel for typical warfare. Its signature feature was that it was a mustard yellow color and it would hover close to the ground on the battlefield. While the gas itself was toxic, its more recognizable effect on the human body was the large blisters it would cause if it was exposed to skin. This meant that even though soldiers typically wore gas masks, they were still burned by the gas everywhere else on their bodies. Here they are, the wicked, a panic floods the field. These lines refer to either the opposing soldiers unleashing the gas or the gas itself as I see it. The gas is personified as wicked while it rushes onto the battlefield. The soldiers see its arrival and panic as they put their gas masks on and try to find cover. Deliverance, unthinkable. They play their part performing oh so well. The soldiers now know that they won't find deliverance and are forced to be burned by the toxic gas. Mustard gas itself is commended for performing its part in the battle, very similar to how the tank was back in that song. The phrasing of playing a part is important as well because it serves as a callback to Act 2's The Bittersweet Two through the dime. In there we are told that the women and men there play their parts in the sinful lusts of the dime. Now we have the soldiers and the mustard gas performing their parts in this war respectively. With empty cores, they carry on, a twisted soul, an apparition. The soldiers who have deployed the gas now move on and continue the fight. The gas itself, now uncontained, carries on and spreads over the field. The misty nature of the mustard gas is portrayed as an apparition in the air. Born of a beastly brand, they butcher purposely, just have the sense to run away. The enemy seeks to destroy Hunter and his fellow soldiers and carry on in that mission. The soldiers are urged to flee the battlefield. Even though their orders might compel them to stay and finish the fight, their instincts are screaming at them to run. Scream at the sky and beg for a reason he would allow this. Look to the sky and say, we would be better off without this. Who would allow this? In the chorus, we see the soldiers looking back to the sky and begging God to deliver them from their torment. Again, they cannot imagine any loving God to allow the creation of something so devastating. Mustard gas would eventually be outlawed for use in warfare and is considered a chemical only used for chemical terrorism now. Even the world at war recognized the cruelty of this chemical. We've never felt alive, but none of us can die just when we want to. Here we have the soldiers admitting that they have gone completely hollow and would prefer to just be dead, but their duty to their country compels them to carry on. Likewise, these lines also refer to those who have been injured by the gas and wish to stop the pain. There's also a mechanical noise in the background that I have always associated with the iron lung, a giant machine that was used to keep people alive, but essentially rendered you completely paralyzed from the neck down. It was a pretty hellish experience. We're stuck in this disguise, with leather skin, these eyes designed to haunt you, but do we haunt you? These lines refer to the gas masks worn by those who spread the mustard gas. Their leather skin is the mask itself, and the large eyes of the mask haunt those who are killed by them. The soldiers seem to be stuck in that position though, and maybe they themselves want to die. The other interpretation that I have always taken from this image is that it's the image of the soldiers in a field hospital laying in agony with their blistered, yellowed skin. Even after they are treated, they will keep the scars of the mustard gas on them. The hopeless look at the dying soldiers would surely haunt anyone who saw them. Now they are stuck in that disguise of the wounded, disfigured soldier forever. You're on the other side, you're on the other side. A couple meanings to this one in my opinion. The first being that the soldiers who are administering the gas are justifying the destruction and suffering by simply saying that the people they are hurting are on the other side of the war and thus they deserve it. The other side could also refer to the afterlife. The soldiers have finally passed away and can find peace in the fact that they are no longer suffering in this life. The final interpretation is that Hunter has fled from the battlefield again and made it to the other side of this same battlefield. He collapses in the dirt and is just glad to be alive for a second. This isn't strictly said in the story, but that's how I've always seen it. Overall, a fantastic song, definitely one of the standouts on this album, and I love the musical riff that comes back in a later album. The use of the brass and piano is incredibly cool and a good sign of the Deer Hunter's growing proficiency with orchestration that we'll see a lot more on Acts 4 and 5. Track 8, Saved. This next song takes place as Hunter is laying in the destruction and decay of the battlefield. He has survived his brush with the mustard gas and lays on the ground with his fellow dead soldiers. He thinks about the current state of his life. Amongst the stone and smoke, we never laid before. Images floating all about life in the afterglow. Hunter has been down before, but he has never been brought to such a low moment, laying in the smoke and stone of the ruins of war. He starts to think about the afterlife, imagining what might be waiting for him after he finally passes away. My decaying mind pretends none of this ever happened. He is resolved to yet again deny the reality around him. The only way he can cope with the situation is to act like he was never brought to this point in the first place. He made a similar resolve back in Act 1 in His Hands Matched His Tongue, when he resolved to not question what his mother was telling him and not worry about any of that stuff. We either learn to live a lie or we're waiting here to die. The choices that Hunter is left with at this moment is to continue living while pretending that he doesn't know how painful life is, or lay down and finally die. Similar to Miss Turie's choice to live the lie that she wasn't a sex worker to protect Hunter. Mystery's impact on Hunter is felt long after she is gone. The way that she saw the world has been transferred onto him, even though she did so much to protect him from that dim view of the way things are. And after all this suffering, I could lie here for good. For a second, it seems that Hunter has resolved himself to sit down and die with the rest of his soldiers. Lucky for us, he doesn't, and we get 2 more awesome albums after this one. But with a mind on fire, I try and stand my ground. In The Lake and the River on Act 2, Hunter said that his mind was on fire. In that song, the line meant that he would continue living and marching towards the town, despite how torn up he was from Miss Therese' death. Now he resolves to stand up and continue on once more. Amongst the stone and smoke, rising above it all, Hunter gets up and is determined to rise above his circumstances. This may be the first time in the story so far that he is making a decision that isn't fueled by anger, spite, or naivety. You love to see it for him. Broken but not beyond repair, let's see how this soul fares. Though he has been through hell, he still believes that he isn't beyond saving. This is actually some fairly respectable confidence from Hunter. He decides to get up and see what the world still has in store for him. Using the phrase of seeing how his soul fares shows that the pain is much more of an emotional and mental one rather than purely physical. He knows that his body is broken and destroyed, but he still has faith that his soul can be redeemed. Illuminate and I will follow you. This line comes up after both choruses. The first time can be seen as Hunter begging his mother to lead him into the afterlife. In The Lake and the River, he said that he could still see her transfixed like a light in front of him after she was gone. He wants that light to return and guide him to where to go, but now he finds a different light. Another group of soldiers is marching through the field and they find Hunter. He is willing to go with any person that stumbles across him at this point, so he decides to go with this new group of soldiers. Everything you thought you've lost, you have now. Who's laughing now? Some really interesting lines here. The first line is the inverse of what was said on What It Means to Be Alone. I think this is meant to show Hunter's relief at being saved by another group of soldiers. His life is everything to him, and he will be able to hold on to that for a little while longer. The other meaning will be fully explored in the next song, but in this moment, Hunter has just found something that he had previously lost in life. The line about people laughing reads to me as the soldiers saving Hunter having somewhat of an upbeat attitude. I can't think of any other meaning because I don't think we have an example of another character laughing earlier in the story that has any significance. The laughter of the soldiers may seem like a good thing, but it hints at the fact that they may be enjoying this war. At any rate, Hunter is saved by this group, who is led by a gruff older man. The man also has his son with him. They are both soldiers and presumably are fighting on the same side as Hunter. I imagine it to be another squad from the same army. The last bit of this song is a little old barbershop style song that doesn't have a ton of meaning rather than to introduce a little bit of levity and bring us into that time period. The levity is important because the next song is anything but light. The private does what the general says, the general does what the president says, the president does what the first lady says, so they say. Again, it's a little fun tune, but there is some meaning to be pulled from it. I might be stretching here, but the idea that someone is always getting orders from another brings to mind the idea that there is always a bigger fish. Hunter has spent his life dealing with problems that he sees as earth-shattering, only to be introduced to even worse problems. I think this little song captures that feeling nicely. Track 9, He Said He Had a Story. Welcome to what I see as the most infamous song in the album. This song is an absolute banger, but if you sing it when somebody doesn't know the context, you will look like a terrible human being. This song is all about a story that the leader of the squad that rescued Hunter, the gruff man, is telling the rest of the squad. It's a story from long ago, and he's telling it while they are all sitting around the campfire. If you have been sensitive to the descriptions of women's suffering in the past albums, you might want to skip this one. There was a silver circle sign, and she was standing at the door. We pressed our way right through the crowd. Our pace was quickened to her floor. That first line is maybe one of the most important lines of this album. The man is at a location with a silver circle sign at the entrance. That location is the Dime. It's the brothel where Miss Leading and Miss Turi worked at. The man is there to have his way with one of the women. They quickly move up to her floor so he can take advantage of her. It is a great turn of what Hunter experienced at the Dime for the first time. Hunter described himself as dancing and floating up to Miss Leading's room. This man has none of that wonder in him. He charges in to take what he wants. The story is incredibly unnerving to Hunter as he imagines Miss Ling being led by this man. There was a single fainting light, and there was silk all on the walls. She had a lot of blood to give. I was prepared to take it all. Unlike Hunter's experience in the dime, this man knows what he wants and he is ready to take it from the woman. The wording is intentionally harsh. This man knows that what he is doing is wrong and he seems to be enjoying making the woman feel bad. But what did she do next? These little interludes are sung from the perspective of the other soldiers around the campfire. They are egging the man on to tell more of the story. They seem like they are very interested in what he is saying and seem to likewise revel in the suffering of this woman. All those interludes are in parentheses in these little lyric cards that I'm putting up, by the way. She had disrobed and she was waiting on the floor. She asked me what it was I want. I thought that I wanted it all. What did you say? It's telling that the woman was waiting for him on the floor. Typically there would be some sort of bed for them to use, but this woman has been reduced to lying on the floor, almost as if the man doesn't see her as worthy of the bed or she herself doesn't see herself as worthy. The man says that he wants everything from the woman. Obviously this is meant in a physical way, but again, the man seems to enjoy the mental anguish she is in. He wants all of that to be caused by him. I said, "Stand up and move your body to the bed." She quickly stood and slowly turned, and here's exactly what she said. The man is barking orders, much like he does with his little squad of soldiers. Although it's clear he thinks of this woman as nothing more than an object, he still remembers and revels in the exact words that she said to him. "Please be soft and sweet to me. This life has not been good, you see. It's hard with such a history buried in misery." The woman pleads with the man to be gentle. Like every woman at the dime, she has had a hard life and just wants one night where the men are sweet and kind to her. Hunter can relate to this woman, as his life has also been pretty hellish up to this point. And what did you do next? The men want the man to continue the story. We can assume that Hunter is horrified, but he can't help himself from listening. I broke a smile, reminding that I paid her well. Her lips returned, and then I felt her hands unbuckling my belt. Luckily, the deer hunter doesn't go into too much more detail from this point, but we can see that the man couldn't care less about how the woman feels. He paid her and she should be performing her job for him. It's brutal and disgusting. So was it good? It felt like heaven, but I'm sure she was in hell. I made it clear I'd get my money's worth out of the goods she sells. There was nothing ignorant about the actions of the man. He knows that the woman is in agony, but he doesn't care. He only cares about getting the service that he paid for, and if the woman is going through hell, that's no skin off his back. Break and bind yourself to me, deliver what you sold. You see that I will only take from you and use it up. I'll use you up. Again, we have the man vocalizing his intentions to break and use this woman. He will only take from her and never give. In a way, this isn't actually true, as he does end up giving something to the woman, something that she never wanted. What was your name? I see this line as being important in a couple ways. The first being that the man is so uncaring about the woman that he never even bothered to ask her name. The second reading is that this line is from Hunter asking for the man's name. The name of the woman is something that isn't answered in this song. It's left as a mystery. But that in and of itself kind of gives it away, doesn't it? The name of the woman in the song is Miss Reed, Hunter's mother. Hunter asking for the name is important to him because he knows who this man is. It's Hunter's father. This means that the son traveling with Hunter's father is Hunter's half-brother. It's probably one of the most crucial songs in relation to the story, and it does it all without spelling anything out. When I first heard it, I assumed it was just a nasty war story, but putting together the silver circle sign and listening to some of the later songs of the album helps you connect those dots. Track 10, This Beautiful Life. This is actually my favorite song of the album. It takes me back to high school so much. I got into this band my junior year, and I remember walking from band class to history class while listening to this song. It was just long enough for that particular walk. Hunter is now traveling with his father's squad. He hasn't told him that he knows he is his dad and continues on in even more pain. Losing his mother was bad, but knowing that his father is a vile man is somehow worse. This is what I was referring to at the end of Saved. Everything that he thought he lost, his family, has now been found. The irony being that Hunter would have been better off alone, since his father is everything that he despises. One foot, then the other. Such embarrassment. It wasn't meant that I should discover such offensive things. Hunter continues marching along in the war. He is a hollow shell of himself, and he realizes that maybe the oracles warned him to stay in the city in order to avoid this pain that he didn't know he could feel. The vibe of this song really paints the picture of Hunter's mind breaking. The song itself is rather upbeat, and it feels like Hunter is just laughing at the intense sadness of it all. He is so broken that he can't help but disassociate from the situation. This suffering sends hope to the ground, but I really never had enough. The revelation of Hunter's lineage should crush any hope that Hunter had, but he honestly never really had enough hope in him to be crushed. This is the way his life has always been. They've got pride in him. This tide turns lives over. The soldiers take pride in their leader, who is a vile, deceitful, selfish man. Hunter sees that maybe being virtuous isn't worth anything in this life. He starts to feel the point that the thief was making a few songs ago. He starts to see what he was talking about. The tide comes in and out every day. In the same way, the world brings suffering and ends lives as if it were a routine as dependable as the tide is. A black-tongued prophecy adorned in stony skin, we never ever had to lie to move ahead. The prophecy was the one that the oracles gave him back in Act 2. The stony skin it is adorned in is honestly a little puzzling. If you have answers for this, please leave them in the comments down below. Maybe it is a glimpse as to what the oracles look like. It could also be a simple reference to the prophecy, and it is a prophecy that would always be dark and too tough for Hunter to handle. He then thinks about his own life and how he never found it necessary to lie to get ahead. The people in his life that loved him the most also lied to him constantly. Hunter wants to believe that he can make it through life by being honest, but he's now seeing that deceit may be necessary. But here in Oblivion, we cling to what we can, so in the end, we can say that with these hands, we took it all back. Hunter now thinks that lying and being more like the father may be what he needs to reclaim his life. Now that he is seemingly at the edge of despair, having lost everything, turning towards darker methods to achieve his goals might be what he wants. Either way, Hunter wants to be able to say that he reclaimed his life by his own hands. If justice is to be served to the father or those who have wronged him, Hunter wants to be the one to do it. So let us force a smile and pretend that we're alive. Hunter is forced to act like nothing is wrong. He is dead inside, but he wants to stay on the good side of the father. If he were to confront him, then he would be killed, and he is not sure what good revealing himself as his son would even do in the first place. Oh, but somewhere none of this happened. The bullets removed themselves. Life is beautiful. The best part of the entire album right here, and it's what I see as the culmination point of Act 3. Hunter imagines what life could have been like if he had simply stayed home at his house by the lake. He chooses to retreat inside his mind to a place where life is truly beautiful. He feels that if he were there right now, the pain inside of him, both physical and mental, would mend themselves. He would be alright, but he isn't home. He's at war. I have a home above the lake where I could forget the words to the songs that we've heard, the passages read, all the names in the world that have brought us this pain, from the wounds we sustained. A little fourth wall break here. Hunter imagines what life would have been like if he had never left home. If he hadn't done all of that, all of these songs wouldn't exist. The story would have ended with Act 1, and maybe Hunter could have lived a happy life. I personally don't think he would have been satisfied living in isolation for his entire life, though. He is chasing an idealized version of a life that wouldn't be as wonderful as he is imagining. His life has been painful, but there was a happy medium somewhere in all the pain that could have worked out for him. A cold, calloused heart sitting still in this cave of a chest, so abandon a life from before a boy and his innocence. Hunter now has a cold heart that has been brutalized. It is at this point that it seems he wants to cut his losses and give up on the life that has led him to this part. He is abandoning the innocent boy that he once was and moving on to something new. Like I said, I think this song is the best one on the album. It just ticks all the boxes for me and features this xylophone in the middle section, which is always a huge plus for me. I was a percussionist in middle and high school, and I can always get down to some xylophone. Okay, anyway, on to our next song. Track 11, Go Get Your Gun. This is actually the most streamed song by the Deer Hunter on Spotify. It is also the worst song on this album. That's just my opinion, but this is one of the few Deer Hunter songs that I don't feel adds a ton to the full experience of the acts. I appreciate the song's aim to set the mood of war, and it's a good look at how cheerily we may view the act of killing other humans, but there is some pretty significant story coming up, and none of that is in this song. Don't get me wrong, I don't think this is a bad song at all. I just don't think it's as strong as everything else on the album. This is the only song on the album that hasn't grown on me over time, and I'm not really sure why it's their most popular song. Probably TikTok if I had to guess, but anyway, that's enough ranting. Let's get into it. Go get your gun, and we'll find out what it does. Shoot, 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 shoot. The soldiers stop for the night and sing a drinking song in order to relax and enjoy themselves. In the universe of the Axe, this is a known song that is sung by the people in times of war. In that way, it makes sense that the song is somewhat basic in compared to the usual Deer Hunter song. We haven't won, and if we win, and if the morning light sets in, we've cheated fate again. Even if the soldiers do end up victorious or live to fight another day, it's only because they cheated fate. With this song, they acknowledge that they were truly sent here to die. That is their fate. And to those who die, please try to understand that for those who die, we try the best we can. The soldiers ask their fallen comrades to understand that they did all they could to save them. They tried all they could, but there were still casualties in the end. With our one foot in the grave, while the other one's kicking its way right down to hell. Everyone involved in the war is on borrowed time. They have one foot in the grave since they are so close to death, but they also feel that the actions they take on the battlefield is bringing them closer and closer to hell. Their killing of the enemy is still unforgivable to them. Go get your gun, imposing penance one by one. You've got a virtue and a vice, it forces fate, you're taking lives. Hunter at this point is now giving himself over to the propaganda spouted by the wartime recruiters and his fellow soldiers. He sees his killing of others as enacting justice and simply bringing fate to those around him. He can rationalize his actions as good since he is fighting as one of the good guys in his mind. With all the history to guide, you've got a passion in those eyes, so aim it straight and true. Hunter's painful history is turning him into someone who takes passion in his ability to kill. He is slowly becoming what he never thought he could be. He's becoming what he looked at with fear and disgust at the beginning of the album. Now, when this is over, then we'll raise a glass straight up to the sun. When the war is finally over, the soldiers will celebrate their accomplishments and go back to business as usual. This isn't typically how things go, as soldiers unfortunately suffer from PTSD and won't be able to leave that life behind as quickly as they would like. As the song ends and the day's battle is over, we hear the sounds of nature and frogs ribbiting in the night. It is time to count the dead. Hunter lays down exhausted and is surprised to find himself next to the sun, his half-brother. Track 12, Sun. Hunter looks over his dying brother. Maybe he has already passed away, but he is most likely in the process of dying. Hunter takes a good look at him and starts forming a plan that will shape the rest of the story. We lay aligned and move to the skies, with the soul below, only the eyes above. Laying down with his brother, Hunter realizes that he has the opportunity to assume his identity. After everything he has been through, he thinks he can let it all go and start pretending that he is someone else completely. With the soul of his brother resting below, presumably, Hunter knows that what matters in the land of the living is what the eyes see. If he can pretend to be his brother, no one will suspect a thing. Slowly and silently slip away. The brother dies. He slips away into the darkness. Hunter also slips away from the rest of the soldiers, taking the dog tags, the identifying items from the brother, and starting to formulate his plan. Sleep now in the soil, the dust and the debris. A stolen smoke ascends, leaving the shell to atrophy. Meet with the earth as the sober spirit sings. Hunter encourages the brother to lay down and die. The stolen smoke is the spirit of the brother drifting away. It is a stolen smoke because Hunter has stolen his life at this point. The corpse of the brother is nothing but a shell at this point that will decay and rot away. Leave it behind. This truth is harming you. Leave it behind. Set out and start anew. The truth of Hunter's life, his mistakes and regrets and memories are doing nothing but harm to him. He steels himself to leave that all behind and start a new life as the brother. Your life hereafter will cure all your troubles and recast a history. This is one line where knowing who is speaking would be very helpful. If this is the oracles, then Hunter has made a decision that will turn out for his benefit. Unfortunately, I believe this is more of Hunter convincing himself that he has just found the solution to his woes. Turn and walk away. While Hunter has always been urged to not turn away and face his problems, he again makes the decision to turn away and chase something else. He turns away from his brother, leaving him to die without anyone getting true closure about his fate. Track 13, Father, a continuation of the previous song. We see Hunter come to terms with his plan and assume his brother's identity. However, he identifies a couple flaws in this plan. The song is all about him deciding what to do about those, and it's also one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. This song actually has one of the very few reprises that we hear in this album from a previous album. It reuses the piano melody that shows up at the beginning of the end of Act 2 in Vital Vessels Vindicate, but a lot slower and just incredibly beautiful. This song is really incredible. And what of the father? Will he analyze? Hunter has to grapple with this question. Will the father know what he has done? The father is a terrible man, and you couldn't blame Hunter for thinking that he wouldn't know the difference between his own two sons. And what of the mother? Will she discover the truth behind this lie we're living? I've always seen this line as referring to two different mothers. The first is the mother of Hunter's half-brother. Will she discover that Hunter isn't who he says he is, or will she also be fooled? The second mother is Miss Therese. We might assume that she knows everything given that she is dead, but maybe spirits aren't all-knowing. Maybe she too will be fooled by Hunter's plan. I knew that I kept this for a reason. I knew that I kept this for a reason. These lines are sung over and over again in the background of the instrumental portion of the song. Hunter is remarking on something that he has kept with him. This is the bottle of poison that was given to him by the Poison Woman back at the beginning of the album. Now everything we've ever had is here for us. Hunter now sees his opportunity to have everything that he lost. He can go home to a mother who is still alive, who loves him and takes care of him. This is another echo of the line that has been used twice already in this album. Everything you've ever had, you lost. Everything you've ever lost, you found. Everything we've ever had is here for us. Don't worry about the father, you'll take care of him. Using the poison, Hunter kills his father, getting rid of that wrinkle in his plan. There is only one more loose end to tie up in his eyes. And as for the mother, she always loved her son, and you look like him. And there we have it. Hunter looks shockingly similar to his half-brother, enough to make the plan foolproof in his eyes. He can now take care of the brother's mother, and maybe Miss Therese will be elated to see her other son, who she never knew, somebody so similar to Hunter, in the afterlife. Hunter's plan is complete. He has stolen his brother's identity, killed his father, and now can return home from the war. Track 14, Life and Death. This is the last song on the album. It is a final look at Hunter, the son, and the father, and what it really means to be alive in a world so cruel. When we dance, it looks just like fire. When we sing, it sounds the same tone. The dance between life and death is something that looks like fire, beautiful, destructive, and passionate. In the same way, Hunter and his brother are so similar that they both resemble the fire. Hunter has been known as the fire his whole life. We all have hearts, we all have homes, but when we die alone. Everyone has a different story. Everyone comes from somewhere different, but everyone goes into death alone. Though Hunter and his brother share many things, their deaths were not shared. The son died alone while Hunter cheated fate and made it out of the war alive. Oh, what a mess, as everything descends. Oh, what a mess, but everything amends. As the war ends, Hunter acknowledges that it has been nothing but a big mess. A mess of pain and suffering, of tanks and mustard gas, of poison and thieves, of fathers and sons. Still, Hunter is confident that his plan of assuming his brother's identity will amend his life and allow him to steal back the time that was lost by his poor decisions. Such it was so long ago, we always tried but failed, and now with newfound consciousness. Hunter has tried so many things and failed at pretty much every single one of them. He tried for love and ended up brokenhearted. He tried to find meaning in the war and ended up abandoning his entire life. Now he has a newfound purpose from his new identity. We stand here waiting to die. Even after everything he has done, after he accomplished his master plan of living a new life, Hunter still feels that he is just waiting to die someday. This line reminds me of the "through all of this, I felt just the same" line at the end of Act 2. Even after the whole album, the fact of the matter still stays the same. One of these days, you will learn to love again. One of these days, he will learn to love again. We are told that Hunter will find a way to learn to love again, that the war didn't change him irreparably, and that there may be hope for him to live a life with some love in it. But when we die alone. When we die. The last line of this album gives us a look into Hunter's mind. Is this saying that he believes there is nothing after death, that death is final, or that potentially death isn't as lonely as he thought, that there may be some sort of reunion waiting for him in the afterlife? The closing piano melody is a variation of Writing on a Wall, a somber way to end the album before hitting us with 4 triumphant sounding chords, like we are where we began, but somewhat more hollow, although having gained some small victory by participating in this war with Hunter. Act 3 is incredible. I always go back and forth on where to rank these albums, but Act 3 keeps growing on me as time goes by. My biggest gripe is that the storytelling is maybe a little too cryptic at times, but that just makes these videos that I make even better, so I can't really complain about that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please go listen to this album and support the Deer Hunter. They are criminally underrated, and if any of you guys are going to the Seattle show for the 20th anniversary, it's coming up in like a week depending on when I post this, my wife and I will be there as well, so that'll be cool, and I'll be in a red Act 2 shirt, so if you ever want to talk to me about something, I don't know, we can talk about lore. That'll be fun. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. These videos take a lot of time and effort to make, and I don't make any money off of it, so it really is just a big labor of love. But the support thus far has been incredible. The Deer Hunter community is awesome. They're super cool and supportive. The subreddit has been great. Casey himself has answered some of my questions, which is super just amazing to see. I love that this band, it sucks that they're so underrated, that they don't get a ton of listeners, but it also is kind of nice because it feels like the community does have them to ourselves. They really are criminally underrated. Some of the best music I've heard in my entire life, my favorite band ever, and I'm just so glad that I get to be a part of this community and that I get to make these videos and kind of be one of the first people to make something like this. You guys have been super great about that. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me for today. So I'll see you guys in the Act 4 video, which I'm gonna get started on, and that'll be a ton of fun. I'm also gonna do some other videos probably after the Act 5 video, just because I want to finish this stuff out, but I will do more album analysis. I'm not sure if I'm going to do Antima yet, but I think for sure I'm going to do a Bright Eyes album, so there's going to be more album analysis on this channel because I really like doing it. It's super fun. I like making music and I love talking about it, and I'm a huge literary analysis nerd. I love reading and I love analyzing music, so I'm definitely going to do Bright Eyes, I'm Wide Awake It's Morning, and just more albums that have some cool symbolism and story to them. Not quite as cool as the Deer Hunter, but stuff that I think Deer Hunter fans will really enjoy. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.